Plaintiff Solomon Gatewood had a rough childhood and says after he was taken away from his crack-addicted mother at age 8, he was sent to a foster home where he was locked in a steel cage. Solomon eventually overcame his obstacles, and 10 years ago he befriended the defendant. Solomon is suing for a loan and emotional distress. Defendant Andre Torres says he joined a gang in 6th grade and as a result committed multiple crimes he's not proud of. Andre claims he and Solomon ultimately bonded over their similar backgrounds, but he denies owing for a loan because he insists Solomon forgave the debt.
Start with you.
Well, Your Honor, I met Andre through my brother about 10 years ago. We became friends. I was the best man at his wedding. He was an employee of mine, worked for me for several years. But he has a problem. He has an addiction to cocaine. And, you know, I can relate. I grew up with a rough childhood. I've been through a lot as a child. My mother was addicted to crack cocaine. I was taken away, me and my siblings were taken away at 8 years old and sent to a foster home. One particular foster home, it was a nightmare. We were treated like animals, left in a room and fed through a steel cage, while my youngest sister, my baby sister, would be upstairs crying day and night. And until the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I ended up, you know, finding a key and getting out the back door and running away. And I ran for miles and miles till I got home, and my mother was there and saw me and started crying and called the police and sent me back. So, you know, but, well, we went back to another group home at that time. But, you know, it was...
Did your mother ever recover?
Yeah, she did, for a slight while. We moved back with her and went to San Diego, and she relapsed. You know, it was just them taking us away from her that gave her the strength to overcome it. Ultimately, she went right back to it again. And, you know, I had growing up, it was tough for us, so I was heavily involved in gangs and kicked out of, you know, 4 different high schools in my high school days. And, you know, I was no angel, so I went through the ringer as a child. And
well, based on the way you were raised,
I know.
sound like somebody you know, huh? How many high schools?
4.
Now he got me by, he has me by 1.
All right. I grew up with a rough childhood. I've been through a lot as a child. My mother was addicted to crack cocaine. I was taken away, me and my siblings were taken away at 8 years old and sent to a foster home. One particular foster home, it was a nightmare. We were treated like animals, left in a room and fed through a steel cage, while my baby sister would be upstairs crying day and night.
Plaintiff Solomon Gatewood is suing his former friend, who claims they bonded over the fact that they are both former gang members who were in and out of prison.
What business did you establish for yourself?
Well, yeah, I ultimately got my GED and went on to study dental hygiene, and now pursuing a degree in radiology as well. But I started a consulting business when I was 24, and I run the consulting business today that the defendant used to work for me for as well.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. A success story that the young people should hear and know that they can do the same. You give me some background on yourself and your relationship with the plaintiff.
I was born in Southern California. I wasn't really brought up in a bad neighborhood, but I just went out, I guess, looking for trouble. One of the reasons that I felt that I had to go out there and do what it is that I was doing, I didn't know my dad till I was like 20 and a half. That's when I first met him. I was actually working with Solomon when I first met my dad. And I was just trying to look for some, like, a male role model, I guess, that I can kind of make them feel like they're proud of me for doing whatever it is that I'm doing. And I was looking for it in all the wrong places. Joined a gang when I was in 6th grade, started stealing, doing drugs, multiple crimes that I'm not proud of. Like I said, I'm not an angel as well. I think maybe having a rough childhood made us get along so well.
The overwhelming majority of young men who are raised without a father in their life, overwhelming majority have contacts with the law and go to jail. Overwhelming majority. So, not surprised at that.
Even with that, my mom was working 2 jobs just to be able to hold the house down, I guess. And I'd wake up in the morning, she'd take me to school. I'd come home from school, she wouldn't come home till like 8, 9, 10 o'clock. So I had all the time on the road to do whatever I wanted to do. When I was a sophomore, I got expelled from the whole school district for taking a gun to school as a sophomore. Did homeschooling junior and senior year. I still graduated high school somehow.
Now, his story is closer, but he's only kicked out of one. My mom worked 2 jobs, so of course we didn't 4 boys in the housing project, so it wasn't a whole lot of supervision. And what'd you say, GED, or you graduated?
Yeah.
But I kicked out of the whole school district. That's the part
4
we
high
share.
schools.
Huh?
It's 4 high schools in the district. I couldn't go back to either one of them.
All right. I got kicked out of 3 of them, and then ultimately the entire district. So what did you do ultimately to get out of that situation?
I was with my girlfriend the whole time. Somehow, through all the madness, she decided to marry me. So we got married. Solomon was the best man in my wedding.
How about lifting yourself up though in employment?
I was in it. I got arrested the first time. I was in jail for selling cocaine, and I got arrested again for assault and battery. And then
I know, but you have to work, get an education.
I went to college, San Diego College. I got my AA degree.
There you go.
And I was going to Cal State Fullerton. I never finished.
There you go. When did you get back on coke, if at all?
20.
How long ago?
2 years ago.
You still getting high? All right.
Yeah.
You a cane head? You don't seem to smoke crack. You
No
cane
crack.
head?
Just cocaine.
Yeah, cane. Cocaine. That's what they call it. You know, you've been around. Don't play crazy. All right. You got to turn that story back around. Let me hear how he owes you $3,000 for the loan.
He asked me to borrow money because he was behind on his rent. Obviously, it was the first, so rent was due. He said something about his car payment. He was ready to lose his car. His car was going to get repossessed. And then he would pay me the money when he got his tax return, within a week or two.
When he got what?
His tax return. Real common story, right?
A common story no one should ever believe.
Yeah,
Go
I know,
ahead.
right? But, you know, being the good guy that I am, I still loaned him the money. And so I loaned him the $2 grand. Haven't seen it back. I sent him text messages, calling him.
What's the 1,000? Emotional distress.
Yeah.
How? What?
Well, I flew my mother out here, and I contacted him, telling him that I needed the money back because my mother was in Ohio. She was in a
So because you had other debts, that is emotional distress?
Well, yeah. The stress that came about in trying to collect the money from him and having to make other arrangements to come up with the money to help somebody else, it was a headache.
Joined a gang when I was in 6th grade. Started stealing, doing drugs, multiple crimes that I'm not proud of. Like I said, I'm not an angel as well. I think maybe having a rough childhood made us get along so well.
Plaintiff Solomon Gatewood is suing his former friend, who claims they bonded over the fact that they are both former gang members who were in and out of prison.
What do you say about the 2,000?
I was going through a hard time. I was kind of in between jobs. I work in the car business, so nothing's really ever stable. June came, he said, I told him what was going on. It's kind of hard on money. And then June, he just said, okay, well then just kind of like forgave the debt. Like, all right, well.
What part of June did he forgive the debt, sir?
I never forgave the debt. Never happened. Never happened.
What do you think, he changed his mind?
No.
So why do you think you're here?
But
One minute he said, yeah, you don't have to pay me. Another minute he said, well, I think I'm gonna sue you.
Not after we haven't talked in a couple months. So.
I said, what do you think happened? Think he forgot?
No.
You think he just changed his mind?
Yeah. I mean.
You don't have to say anything.
I never forgave the debt. I'll repeat myself.
I know you didn't. Your story isn't making sense. Didn't tell you anything. It just said show up in court. I don't have anything else to do. I'm just take time away from my business, endure emotional distress. As he says, stop looking pitiful. You ain't had no emotional distress. Really? 2,000 for the plaintiff. Have a good day.
Well, I mean, we can stay friends after this. I just can't never loan him money again.
He was the best man at my wedding, so I mean, that is something that we do. It's never gonna change, so I mean, the fact that we can stay friends doesn't mean a lot to me.
Good luck, son.